Hey everyone, Lauren from A Girl and Her Wool here. Today is Wednesday, April 29th, maybe, around the end of the month, and today I'm going to be doing my work in progress video. So I'm going to give you a little recap on all of the knitting projects that I am currently working on, and it is not many. I am not working on very many. I have 2 shawls to show you, and that is it. If you're new, you can find me as A Girl and Her Wool on Ravelry and on Instagram. And the very first video I ever posted on my YouTube channel is a little introduction to me. So if you haven't already, go watch that. It has info about how I got into knitting, and kind of me as a fiber artist, and then my hand-dyed yarn shop. So make sure you go check that out, and if you have any other questions, you are more than welcome to ask me them below or through Instagram or Ravelry, however you want. So without further ado, we will get into it. I think my socks were done last week when I showed you, but maybe not. I think I had just a few more rows of the cuff left. Those were my honeybee dance socks that I was knitting out of One Twisted Tree yarn. They are now done. I think I finished them the next day, maybe. And for the first time, I think in years, I don't have a sock cast on, and I'm kind of okay with it. The honeybee dance socks you'll be able to see on a Faux Friday post. I am behind on posting my hat one that I was gonna post last Friday. It's actually uploaded into YouTube, and I just need to publish it. I like to post those at the same time that I post the same highlight project post on my blog, and I just am waiting to take some finished object photos of that hat before I do that. So you'll see the hat this Friday 100% for sure, and then you'll see the honeybee dance socks highlighted next Friday. So I won't show them here so I don't get too redundant. But yeah, this is the first time in years that I don't have a sock cast on, and while that's a little weird, it's fine. I kind of lost my sock mojo probably a year ago. I was really into socks a couple of years ago. It was a lot of what I was knitting, and I think I just got socked out. Like I enjoy the fact that you just kind of go round and round, but I was just getting tired of knitting stockinette for the same number of inches, doing the same heel and everything. So I was doing the Desert Vista Dye Works striped sock club, sock knit along, and I pretty much just did that for sock knitting last year in 2019. I did other socks here and there, especially once I wanted shop samples, but I really didn't knit too many socks just for the joy of knitting socks. And so when this year started and I didn't do the sock club this year, I really thought I wouldn't have any socks cast on, but then my husband's dad kind of requested a pair, which was fine, and I knit those. And then I think I did a couple of other samples for the shop. And then these honeybee dance socks that I cast on was really just, I was out of knitting one night and needed something quick, and that's what socks are perfect for. You can just grab a skein of sock yarn, wind it up, and go. So I cast these socks off, and I did not cast another one on, and I'm not sure when I will. I have plenty of sock yarn in this bin right here, but for now they're gonna stay there, and I'm gonna work on some other things. So I have 2 shawls to show you, and that is it. One is a new cast on, and then I probably will, like always, talk about a little bit of what's upcoming. So the first shawl that I'm going to show you is the same one you've been seeing for weeks, and I honestly thought about just not showing it at all, but there is something about it that I do want to talk about in conjunction with the other shawl that I am working on. So again, this is my Drachenfell shawl, which is a pattern by Melanie Berg. I am knitting this out of Suburban Stitcher yarn. It's all the single sock, which is a single ply merino sock yarn. It's not a sock yarn, it's just merino. There's no nylon in it. And I am doing this in 3 colors. So the darkest is the navy blue is Darkest Hour, the coral is Clementine, and then you get one strip of it. You can see the lightest color that I have in here is called Sweet Adeline, which is a cream base with just some speckles of the coral. I'm not gonna go get that. So last week I was kind of early on in this striping process, and look at that, I have a drop stitch. Look at that. It's funny. I probably wouldn't have noticed otherwise. I'm gonna grab a stitch marker. I'll be right back. Okay, so I got a stitch marker and put it on so I don't lose the drop stitch, so you can see it hanging there now. So I'm kind of glad that happened, actually. I think my mom seems to think that I don't make too many mistakes with my knitting, and she's always dropping stitches. Well, she was. She doesn't really anymore. But yeah, she like drops stitches and everything, has to go back and fix things. So look, see, I make mistakes too. So anyway, I dropped the stitch, so I'll just ladder that back up. It looks like it probably happened and I missed it. And it was there. Sorry, what I'm trying to say is it's not like it fell back all of these rows. I think it just happened there and I didn't notice for all of these rows that I was knitting. It'll look a little tight probably when I ladder it up, but then when I block it, it'll kind of make its way back in there. So anyway, where was I? So last week I had gotten into the stripes, and I think I was like really looking forward to adding the third color in, which you'll see I did. So you can see kind of that bright color going in the middle of the stripes there, and that's all I got. I got to do one row with the new color, and then I went back to colors A and B, which is what I'm doing now. So again, I haven't made too much progress on this. If you've been watching, I knit on this while I'm reading, hence the drop stitch. I probably zipped right by and didn't even notice because I don't look down when I'm reading. And yeah, so I work on this just for a little bit every day, if that, and just make my way through this garter project. A couple of things that I wanted to talk about with this shawl is that, one, I did not really look at the pattern too much in detail beforehand, so that's why, again, I didn't realize that it would be so long before color number 3 came into it. But then I think once I finished this, don't believe anything I say about this shawl. I've been lying about it ever since I cast it on, but I think once I finish this current stripe section, which I have about one more ridge in each color, I think then I'm mostly just using color 3 for the rest of the shawl. What I realized though when I was looking at a picture of the finished project to figure out how long until I got to use color number 3 is that you can see the way that I'm doing this shawl is that my color A was the darkest, my color B was the kind of medium color, and color C is the lightest. It actually looks like the way that the designer knit the sample up was that color A was also the darkest, but then her color B here was actually the lighter tone. So I've swapped that out. And I think, I'm such a you have to do the things the way they were kind of intended type person. There is no way I'm ripping this out to redo that. But I think I've decided I think I'm actually going to enjoy the way I have it better, because I think, again, don't believe anything I say about this shawl, but I think once I finish this striped section, I'm mostly done with this dark blue color, which I kind of also hope at this point because I'm running low on it. And I actually really like the coral and the navy next to each other, and if I had done the cream next to the blue, I wouldn't have liked that pairing as much. And I'm still going to get to see the cream and the coral next to each other, which I think is how, when I bought it, I bought these 3 yarns together, that's how I was kind of hoping it to be, is that you know, these two, oh, the ball that ran away goes really well with this because the speckles on it are this color. And then, you know, I think that just navy and coral go so beautifully together. So what I'm trying to say is if I had noticed that from the beginning, I probably would have done it in the other order, in that I probably would have had the cream where the coral is, but I'm really happy that I didn't. So anyway, that's about that shawl. It's probably another reminder to read the pattern through before you kind of go, but obviously, you know, it all works out in the end anyway. So that is my Drakenfell shawl. So a couple of things about that, and I'm gonna bring it back out in a second. But I'm going to show the other project first. Okay, and then the other project that I have to show is a new cast on, and this kind of happened very quickly. I don't think this would have been mentioned last week in upcoming projects. It kind of like all happened so fast. So, right? Yeah, I don't think I would have talked about this last week. But I did a virtual trunk show with my local yarn shop, which you can still shop through Saturday at aknitsheep.com. And one of the things that we did was we really tried to kit things together. So we had some kits available ready to go based on some of the samples that I had. And we also tried to just be prepared for good patterns to use with some of the gradients. So if you aren't too familiar with my shop, in my shop I offer a lot of gradient sets. I love dyeing them. I think they're so fun to look at and play with. I've knit with one of them in my time trade shawl, but we just wanted to have other patterns selected. And so while I was looking up good gradient patterns, I saw the Painting Brick Shawl by Stephen West, which is one of his newer patterns. I think it came out maybe a month or so ago, so not too new, but it's definitely newer. And the way the pattern works is, and now that I think about it, I feel like maybe I did talk about it last week. But anyway, it's the way the shawl is, it's a huge shawl, humongous. And it has little rectangles of color that are outlined in kind of a darker contrast color. And the way he does it is each row of bricks is a different color, so it almost is like a rainbow. And I think he repeats his color selection throughout the shawl. So what I'm doing is I'm knitting the same thing with one of my gradient sets, but instead of doing each row as a color, I'm just kind of using up the yarn, and then the color will become a gradient just one time through the whole shawl. So I think it was maybe last Thursday or Friday when I finally picked out what I wanted to do with the shawl. So I'm using my Neon Unicorn gradient, which this is some of it hanging up here. The first two colors are already in my shawl, so they're kind of off of my holder here. And then I just have some of the other pinks are also already off of here. But anyway, you get the idea. It's a teal, a turquoise to a hot pink gradient that's speckly and everything throughout it. And I decided to contrast it, to have my neutral contrast be denim, which is a tonal blue. And what I ended up doing was I actually made kits for this. So if you are interested in this, the kits are available at aknitsheep.com. Each one of the mini skeins here is 15 grams. So my normal set comes in 10 grams each, which is 100 grams total. But just based on the pattern, I ended up making them 15 grams each, just to make sure there's enough. And then the kit comes with 2 skeins of denim. So again, this is a huge shawl, but that's Stephen West. And so here is what I have done so far. So you can kind of see, again, I used color number 1, my first color in my gradient set, which is that teal color, and I did that for quite a few rows. And then if you see down at the bottom, it's starting to get a little bit lighter, and that's where I put in color number 2 for these last couple of rows. So you see you get those bricks of color with the denim outline. And yeah, so this shawl grows quickly. He definitely has the increases happen quickly. You can see I already have, I think I have almost 200 stitches in a row already. And I'm only on color 2. So this is going to be humongous, which I'm totally okay with. And yeah, so, and if you are interested in following along, I didn't use up color number 1 to its entirety. I think when I did my calculations, I like doing my calculations and preparing these kits, I think I decided you needed like 12 or 13 grams of each contrast color to kind of get to his total recommended. So I knit until I had about, I think I have like 3 grams left of color number 1, 2 or 3 grams, somewhere between there. I did end this color at the end of a row and then started on color number 2. So that's gonna be kind of how I go through it. So I'm gonna put in my project notes which row I switched each color on. So if you are interested in using one of my gradient sets, you can follow along there and how I adapted the pattern to them. You also totally could do one color, like kind of as he designs it. If you saw this, so like this row here would be one color, and then, hold on, let me find a good way to hold this up. So if you did it, there we go. So like this would be one color, and then you cut the contrast color, and then this is the next color and you cut it at the end of the row, and then you do this one and cut it at the end of the row. So you could do that with the gradient and actually go through the gradient a few times throughout the shawl, but how I'm gonna do it is one long gradient. So color number 1 was, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 rows. And by rows, I mean 8 sets of rectangles before I moved on to color 2. Maybe color 2 will be 6 or 7 because the rows are longer, so I'll have fewer of them. But because it's a gradient, you're not even gonna like notice that. It's not like this deep dark turquoise will be like this huge color block, because it's gonna go so slowly through the colors. So that is the progress that I've made on that shawl. Again, the rows have gotten very long very quickly. It's not quite garter stitch. You do have some other things you need to do. So this is not my reading project. The Drachenfels shawl is. This is kind of my as I'm dying or relaxing project. The other thing I wanted to mention about this, and that's why I also have the Drachenfels shawl here, is you can see I currently have this with some, I don't even know what they're called. They're like the caps that you put at the end of the needles. So I have an interchangeable needle set that I primarily use for all of my knitting. I got this when I first started knitting a long time ago. It's the Knit Picks interchangeable set, and I love those needles. I know everyone has opinions about all different needles. I am totally content and happy with my Knit Picks interchangeable set. So the only problem with it is that I am a loose knitter, so I always go down needle sizes. So this shawl, he calls for a size 5 needle. I'm using a size 4. 1, because I always go down a needle size just as a general rule. And then 2, I've knit with this yarn. This is my hand-dyed yarn, A Girl and Her Wool. This is my sock base, which is a superwash merino and nylon blend. And I always like knitting shawls with a size 4 with this yarn. So I also am knitting my Drachenfels shawl out of a size 4 needles, and I only have one set of size 4 needles. So what I have done is, and I think it's over there, my only other set of size 4 needles is a 16-inch needle, and that's what I have used to knit this. And you can see this is a 32-inch cable. This is getting to be way too long for a 16-inch needle. So I just kind of want to talk about some tips and tricks there. So 1, I could go out and buy another pair of needles, but in this world we're living in, that's not as easy as it necessarily sounds. So one trick you could do is, let's say these were actually well, they're size 4 needles, so we'll talk about it with that. What I could do is, when you're knitting, you always have you have your right needle, which is kind of where you're knitting your stitches onto, and you have your left needle, which is where you're kind of picking your stitches from. So one trick you could do is, you have your size 4 needle as your right needle, which is what's making your stitches, and you could actually use a smaller needle for your left hand one. So in this case, a size 3 or a size 2, even a size 1, just something smaller than what you kind of have now, because you don't want your stitches to get caught on the larger needle. And you could do it that way. So instead of having 2 size 4 needles here, I could have 1 as my right hand needle on this one and 1 as my right hand needle on this one, and then they both could have the size 3 on the other hand. That's something really great about interchangeable needles, is that you can set it up that way. The only problem with me with that is that my interchangeable set goes down to size 4. So I don't actually have any needle tips that are smaller than a size 4. So that trick doesn't actually work for me in this case, which is really disappointing. So what I'm going to have to do in that case, but again, that's a trick you could use. So if I did knit these on size 5 or size 6, my right hand needle could be that size 5, and then I could have my size 4 as the left hand needle. And that way you don't have to keep, you don't have to buy extra needles or needle tips. What I plan to do with this one, and again, the caps are on there right now, so I probably will just buy another set of size 4 needle tips. But I can also just change them out every time I want to switch the project. So we'll see what I end up doing. I think what I might do is keep the size 4 needles on this project, since I'm knitting on it more, and then just in the mornings when I pick up this project, go grab the needles. It's not ideal, but again, I'm not knitting on this so much right now, so it works, and I can do that. And this is like my grab and go project anyway. So yeah, I think I will do that. So anyway, I did a whole lot of, not a lot of projects, but kind of wanted to talk about that dilemma of the size 4 needles that I am currently living in. Knitting this on a 16-inch needle has definitely been a adventure. It really has a lot of increases and grows quickly, so we'll see how it goes from there. Again, check out my Ravelry project page if you're interested in following along with when I switch colors here. I have a whole lot of gradient sets in my shop that you can check out. Neon Unicorn is only at the trunk show for right now, so if you're interested in that, go check it out there. And I did ramble on about these for a long time, so I probably won't talk too much about future projects, but just really quickly, I think I've talked a lot about kind of like a larger project that I have coming up, and maybe I haven't, but I think a lot of people are kind of like in one of two camps during this pandemic. They either want simple because they feel like there's too much stress in their life right now that they just need their knitting to be simple, and I get that. And then you have the other people who say, I'm stuck at home, this is the time for me to do a crazy project, and I feel like I'm leaning in that camp sometimes a little bit more. So I am thinking about casting on a Persian Dreams blanket, and I'm thinking of dyeing up a new gradient to use as that color, so I might do like a lighter neutral as the main color, and then the design of the color work would be in a gradient. So that's kind of upcoming, but I have to have the time to, one, dye up said gradient, and to knit. So anyway, that is it. Keep an eye out for that. And if you missed it, yesterday I posted a complete day in the life video. It was one of my days in the life from last week that was I took a day off from my regular work and I got a whole lot of dyeing and shipping done. So if you're curious to see a behind the scenes look into my hand dyed yarn shop, definitely check that one out. And yeah, if you have any questions or anything you want to see more about, let me know and I will make sure I do it. So anyway, otherwise things are holding up here all right. We're doing just fine and I hope you are all as well. And I will see you next time. Bye.